Good evening, everyone. This is a bit earlier than I normally like to do this. Candidly, I'm not feeling real great today, unfortunately, and I'm just, in general, not very happy this week at all. Debated on whether or not I would even bother mentioning it, but here we are. So, I've said it. I am going to read The Little Prince today. However, just sort of the mood that I'm in right now, I'm gonna start with something that I hadn't planned on reading until about 10 minutes ago. Any actor will tell you that when you're used to being a comedian, I mean, comedy actors can do drama, I mean, really, really beautifully because, tragedy and comedy are sisters. They're so near to one another. And comedy writers, or I should say, writers who are used to writing, things that are outright comedy or satire or whatever, can switch gears toward writing things that are more dramatic and more serious quite easily. And I realize that I'm stealing my own thunder a little bit here because I had chosen to save, there are 2 chapters from Erma Bombeck. Those of you that remember when I was reading Erma Bombeck last week, there are 2 chapters from later in the book that I chose to read on Christmas Eve that have funny bits, but fundamentally they're not funny. And 50 years ago, over 50 years ago now, back when Erma Bombeck was a columnist, she wrote what I consider to be one of the best pieces of writing I've ever read. And I've recommended it to people, but I've never read it out loud to people, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to go ahead and read it now because I think it's worth sharing, especially this time of year. So this is a column from, this is an entry from when Erma Bombeck was a columnist. The column name was At Wit's End. And so I shall read it to you. This is called No More Oatmeal Kisses. A young mother writes, I know you've written before about the empty nest syndrome, that lonely period after the children are grown and gone. Right now, I'm up to my eyeballs in laundry and muddy boots. The baby is teething, the boys are fighting. My husband just called and said to eat without him, and I fell off my diet. Lay it on me again, will ya? Okay. One of these days, you'll shout, why don't you kids grow up and act your age? And they will. Or, you guys get outside and find yourself something to do and don't slam the door. And they won't. You'll straighten up the boys' bedroom, neat and tidy, bumper stickers discarded, bedspread tucked and smooth, toys displayed on the shelves, hangers in the closet, animals caged, and you'll say, out loud, now I want it to stay that way. And it will. You'll prepare a perfect dinner with a salad that hasn't been picked to death, and a cake with no finger tracing in the icing. And you'll say, now there's a meal for company. And you'll eat it alone. You'll say, I want complete privacy on the phone. No dancing around, no demolition crews. Silence! Do you hear? and you'll have it. No more plastic tablecloths stained with spaghetti. No more bedspreads to protect the sofa from damp bottoms. No more gates to stumble over at the top of the basement steps. No more clothespins under the sofa. No more playpens to arrange a room around. No more anxious nights under a vaporizer tent. No more sand in the sheets or Popeye movies in the bathroom. No more iron-on patches, rubber bands for ponytails, tight boots, or wet knotted shoestrings. Imagine a lipstick with a point on it. No babysitter for New Year's Eve. Washing only once a week. Seeing a steak that isn't ground. Having your teeth cleaned without a baby on your lap. No PTA meetings, no carpools, no blaring radios, no one washing her hair at 11 o'clock at night. Having your own roll of Scotch tape. Think about it. No more Christmas presents out of toothpicks and library paste. No more sloppy oatmeal kisses. No more tooth fairy. No giggles in the dark. No knees to heal. No responsibility. Only a voice crying, "Why don't you grow up?" And the silence echoing, "I did." Just to lead you in case you're unfamiliar, we have just come to know the Little Prince's asteroid and his neighbors, and we are now visiting the last two on his journey. The sixth planet was 10 times larger than the last one. It was inhabited by an old gentleman who wrote voluminous books. "Oh, look! Here is an explorer!" he exclaimed to himself when he saw the little prince coming. The little prince sat down on the table and panted a little. He had already traveled so much and so far. "Where do you come from?" the old gentleman said to him. "What is that big book?" said the little prince. "What are you doing?" "I am a geographer," said the old gentleman. "What is a geographer?" said the little prince. "A geographer is a scholar who knows the locations of all the seas, rivers, towns, mountains, and deserts." "That is very interesting," said the little prince. "Here at last is a man who has a real profession." And he cast a look around him at the planet of the geographer. It was the most magnificent and stately planet he had ever seen. "Your planet is very beautiful," he said. "Has it any oceans?" "I couldn't tell you," said the geographer. The little prince was disappointed. "Has it any mountains?" "I couldn't tell you," said the geographer. "And towns, and rivers, and deserts?" "I couldn't tell you that either." "But you're a geographer." "Exactly," the geographer said. "But I am not an explorer. I haven't a single explorer on my planet. It is not the geographer who goes out to count the towns, the rivers, the mountains, the seas, the oceans, and the deserts. The geographer is much too important to go loafing about. He does not leave his desk. But he receives the explorers in his study. He asks them questions, and he notes down what they recall of their travels. And if the recollections of anyone among them seem interesting to him, the geographer orders an inquiry into that explorer's moral character." Why is that? Because an explorer who told lies would bring disaster on the books of the geographer. So would an explorer who drank too much. "Why is that?" said the little prince. "Because intoxicated men see double." Cut off all the words to mess up. "Then the geographer would note down 2 mountains in a place where there was only 1. "I know someone," said the little prince, "who would make a bad explorer." "That is possible." Then, when the moral character of the explorer is shown to be good, an inquiry is ordered into his discovery. One goes to see it? No. That would be too complicated. But one requires the explorer to furnish proofs. For example, if the discovery in question is that of a large mountain, one requires that large stones be brought back from it. The geographer was suddenly stirred to excitement. But you come from far away. You are an explorer. You shall describe your planet to me. And having opened his big register, the geographer sharpened his pencil. The recitals of explorers are put down first in pencil. One waits until the explorer has furnished proofs before putting them down in ink. Well, said the geographer expectantly. Oh, well, where I live, said the little prince, it's not very interesting. It is all so small. I have 3 volcanoes. 2 volcanoes are active and the other is extinct. But one never knows. One never knows, said the geographer. I also have a flower. We do not record flowers, said the geographer. Why is that? The flower is the most beautiful thing on my planet. We do not record them, said the geographer, because they are ephemeral. What does that mean, ephemeral? Geographies, said the geographer, are the books which, of all books, are most concerned with matters of consequence. They never become old-fashioned. It is very rarely that a mountain changes its position. It is very rarely that an ocean empties itself of all its waters. We write of eternal things. But extinct volcanoes may come to life again, the little prince interrupted. What does that mean, ephemeral? Whether volcanoes are extinct or alive, it comes to the same thing for us, said the geographer. The thing that matters to us is the mountain. It does not change. But what does that mean, ephemeral? Repeated the little prince, who never in his life had let go of a question once he'd asked it. It means which is in danger of speedy disappearance. Is my flower in danger of speedy disappearance? Certainly it is. My flower is ephemeral, the little prince said to himself, and she has only 4 thorns to defend herself against the world. And I have left her on my planet, all alone. That was his first moment of regret. But he took courage once more. What place would you advise me to visit now? He asked. The planet Earth, replied the geographer. It has a good reputation. And the little prince went away, thinking of his flower. So then, the 7th planet was the Earth. The Earth is not just an ordinary planet. One can count there... Sorry, I'm reading ahead a little bit. I just want to remind all of you that this was written in the early 40s. I'm going to read what's written here. But I think it's important that you know that this was written in the 1940s and was translated in the 1940s. And I'm asking you to hear what I have to say in the mode that it was written in. Antoine de Saint-Exupéry was an egalitarian. However, what he has written here might sound strange. But I ask that you hear it in the spirit that it was written in. So I shall begin again. Sorry, I forgot this was coming up. So then the 7th planet was the Earth. The Earth is not just an ordinary planet. One can count there 111 kings, not forgetting, to be sure, the Negro kings among them. I hate that line. 7,000 geographers, 900,000 businessmen, 7,500,000 tipplers, possibly more, 301 million conceited men, definitely more. That is to say, about 2 billion grown-ups. To give you an idea of the size of the Earth, I will tell you that before the invention of electricity, it was necessary to maintain, over the whole of 6 continents, 7, a veritable army of 462,511 lamplighters for the street lamps. Seen from a slight distance, that would make a splendid vehicle. The movements of this army would be regulated like those of the ballet and the opera. First would come the term of the lamplighters in New Zealand and Australia. Having set their lamps alight, they would go off to sleep. Next, the lamplighters of China and Siberia would enter for their steps in the dance, and then they too would be waved back into the wings. After that would come the turn of the lamplighters of Russia and the Indies, then those of Africa and Europe, then those of South America, then those of North America. And never would they make a mistake in the order of their entry upon the stage. It would be magnificent. Only the man who was in charge of the single lamp at the North Pole, and his colleague who would be responsible for the single lamp at the South Pole. Only these two would live free from toil and care. They would be busy twice a year. When one wishes to play the wit, he sometimes wanders a little from the truth. I have not been altogether honest in what I have told you about the lamplighters, and I realize that I run the risk of giving a false idea of our planet to those who do not know it. Men occupy a very small place upon the earth. If the 2 billion inhabitants who people its surface were all to stand upright and somewhat crowded together, as they do for some big public assembly, they could easily be put into one public square 20 miles long and 20 miles wide. All humanity could be piled up on a small Pacific islet. The grown-ups, to be sure, will not believe you when you tell them that. They imagine that they fill a great deal of space. They fancy themselves as important as the baobabs. You should advise them, then, to make their own calculations. They adore figures. Then that will please them. But do not waste time on this extra task. It is unnecessary. You have, I know, confidence in me. When the little prince arrived on the earth, he was very much surprised not to see any people. He was beginning to be afraid that he had come in the wrong planet when a coil of gold, the color of the moonlight. Oh, for heaven's sake, it's the wrong picture. Sorry. Let me try that again. When the little prince arrived on the earth, he was very much surprised not to see any people. He was beginning to be afraid he had come to the wrong planet when a coil of gold, the color of the moonlight, flashed across the sand. "Good evening," said the little prince courteously. "Good evening," said the snake. "What planet is this that I have come down?" asked the little prince. "This is the earth. This is Africa," the snake answered. "Ah, then there are no people on the earth? This is the desert. There are no people in the desert. The earth is large," said the snake. The little prince sat down on a stone and raised his eyes toward the sky. "I wonder," he said, "whether the stars are set alight in heaven so that one day each one of us may find his own again. Look at my planet. It's right there above us. But how far away it is." "It is beautiful," the snake said, "but what has brought you here?" "I have been having some trouble with a flower," said the little prince. "Ah," said the snake, and they were both silent. "Where are the men?" The little prince at last took up the conversation again. "It is a little lonely in the desert." "It is also lonely among men," the snake said. The little prince gazed at him for a long time. "You are a funny animal," he said at last. "You are no thicker than a finger." "But I am more powerful than the finger of a king," the snake said. The little prince smiled. "You are not very powerful. You haven't even any feet. You cannot even travel. I can carry you farther than any ship could take you," said the snake. He twined himself around the little prince's ankle like a golden bracelet. "Whomever I touch, I send back to the earth from whence he came." The snake spoke again. "But you are innocent and true, and you come from a star." The little prince made no reply. "You move me to pity. You are so weak on this earth made of granite," the snake said. "I can help you someday. If you grow too homesick for your own planet, I can... Oh! I understand you very well," said the little prince. "But why do you speak in riddles?" "I solve them all," said the snake, and they were both silent. The little prince crossed the desert and met with only one flower. It was a flower with 3 petals, a flower of no account at all. "Good morning," said the little prince. "Good morning," said the flower. "Where are the men?" the little prince asked politely. The flower had once seen a caravan passing. "Men?" she echoed. "I think there are 6 or 7 of them in existence. I saw them several years ago. But one never knows where to find them. The wind blows them away. They have no roots, and that makes their life very difficult." "Goodbye," said the little prince. "Goodbye," said the flower. After that, the little prince climbed a high mountain. The only mountains he had ever known were the 3 volcanoes, which came up to his knees, and he used the extinct volcano as a footstool. "From a mountain as high as this one," he said to himself, "I shall be able to see the whole planet at one glance, and all the people." But he saw nothing, save peaks of rock that were shaped like needles. "Good morning," he said courteously. "Good morning, good morning, good morning," answered the echo. "Who are you?" said the little prince. "Who are you? Who are you? Who are you?" answered the echo. "Be my friends. I'm all alone," he said. "I'm all alone. I'm all alone. All alone," answered the echo. "What a queer planet," he thought. "It is altogether dry and altogether pointed and altogether harsh and forbidding, and the people have no imagination. They repeat whatever one says to them. On my planet, I had a flower. She was always the first to speak." And that is it for today. Tomorrow we finally get to the chewy caramel center of this book. Tomorrow we meet the fox, which is a very important section. A section of great consequence. I had a discussion with a buddy of mine. I can't say this enough. I think it's really important that for those of you who are enjoying The Little Prince, I think it's important to, when you are falling down an internet rabbit hole, maybe look up the Katherine Woods translation. I'm not going to proselytize about Katherine Woods. I've already made it clear that I think that this is the superior translation, but I don't wish for you to just take me at my word. I think it's important for you to find out for yourself, because obviously any French person, quite rightly, would tell me that I'm wrong, because the superior words are these ones, because they were the author's words. But I would counter that although my French is passable, it's not my native language. And when you have a book read to you in a language that is not your native language, it hits different. It's just different, you know. The connotations of the different references. And Katherine Woods, bless her, she made some choices, some very bold choices as a translator. In particular, well, I'll just say it out loud. There is a trope within writing called arc words. We see these a lot in literature and in film. Arc words are words that are repeated throughout a given work. Not everyone has, not every movie or not every book has them. This one does. And the feature of matters of consequence is a feature that is unique to her translation because she made the decision. I'm so sorry to keep itching my nose. I don't know what I'm doing. It's just itchy for some reason. She made the decision to translate that specifically as matters of consequence, even when the meaning was shaded in the earlier text. It wasn't always the same words that she chose to translate as that, but in doing so created a through line throughout the book, which I would venture to say that the author would have approved of. And I base this on nothing except for my own opinion, which is worth nothing. But that is my opinion as someone who read this book when I was very young and am now not very young anymore. And yet those words continue to affect me. And accordingly, I feel that Katherine Woods has done what every translator seeks to do, which is to translate the spirit of the work, which is very difficult to do. You can translate the words, you can translate with some accuracy the meaning, but to translate the heart of what you are meant to translate, I think, is a very difficult thing indeed, a matter of great consequence. And as somebody who is now seeing The Little Prince through the eyes of a 4-year-old and a 40-year-old, I can say that she was successful in her mission. But I wish for you to come to that conclusion on your own. I think you should question everything you hear, especially from me. Anyway, I need to go to bed. But thank you for being here with me, and I will look forward to seeing you tomorrow.